Hello, welcome to our conversation around discipleship. I want to take 4 of these core messages and just spend some time with us, helping us think about discipleship in, I hope, some ways that are going to encourage us and motivate us to engage with some of the ideas and some of the, as ever, application of our faith. I think we are at a really important time for a lot of things, and really specifically discipleship. I think there are a lot of ideas floating around discipleship, and I think there's some great stuff floating around. I think there's some rubbish stuff floating around, and I think there's a lot of everything else in between. And I want to encourage us to find some freedom and some creativity and some inspiration, hopefully, in the ways that we can find and follow Jesus, the ways that we can help encourage each other to do that, and then the wider world. We want to connect with people to help them find and follow Jesus as well. So 4 messages, 4 ideas, 4 things that will all work together, but we're going to take a message for each of them, and I want to just share some thoughts around that with you. Today I want to read something from, you'll be unsurprised, I'm sure, if you've been around for any amount of time, in what we're doing, Matthew 28. I'm going to read right from the end of Matthew chapter 28, and that's not where we're going to be for the whole of this conversation. The other 3 communications will have some other points of reference as well, but we kind of have to start in Matthew 28. We have to start there because we received this instruction, this commission, this great commission from Jesus's words as we receive them, this call for us to make disciples. And we have been encouraged by that, or beating ourselves up about that ever since we first encountered them. And do they apply to me? Is that something I need to be involved in? What does that say about my personality? How do I figure all of this out? And I want us to have healthy conversations around some of that. I want us to get in front of that. I think the way of life that we have available to us is an incredible thing, but it can get into some of the spaces and gaps in our thinking and our application. And this really for this week is where I want to draw our attention and our focus. I think in the age and the day and the time, and however you want to frame it, that we live in today, I don't think our tension any longer is information. I think our tension is application. And I think we can be very clever and very slippery at making things about information at the avoidance at all costs of application. And I think culturally, within the worldview that we occupy and the heritage and the history that we have, and as brilliant as that is and as thankful as we are for those things, it can make us just focus on some things that are not tensions for the day and the age that we live in. We have the access to incredible information, generally for free, generally 24/7. We're not limited to hearing one person share something one day of the week for an hour or 90 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever. We don't have to become fixated in the delivery of those patterns, those religious observances. We are not the limits of how we gain information anymore. And so the value, and I think it's just my opinion, but I think what the Spirit of God is releasing us to do is to be people of application rather than the collection of information. I think we get to do something with the things that we have heard, with the things that we receive, with the things that we have access to. Now, there is another conversation for another day about the type of information that we have access to. I've already referenced, I think there is some incredible resource available, and I think there's some absolute junk floating around. I think there's some terrible stuff that will not help you find and follow Jesus, and will not point you in a direction for his kingdom or for his glory. And we can have that conversation another day. That's not the point that I'm trying to make in here, but I trust that as somebody with the competencies to connect with this communication, that you have enough about you to discern, or to ask the question, or to send something to somebody if you're not sure about it, and ask the question and say, hey, is this good for my soul? Is this feeding me the things of God, or is this junk that I need to just let this one pass me by? So we are thinking about how we become people of application and not just people of information. I love information, so this is attention for me. How do we balance these things? We need to know what we're doing in our finding and following of Jesus. And so let me read Matthew 28, 16 to 20 for us, and then I want to quickly just lift some things out and then encourage us to application. The goal with this set of 4 communications is not for me to drone on and on and on, but to give us some starter kind of thoughts or ideas, an introduction to maybe some ideas for us then to run with and to push and pull around together. So you're going to need to connect with people. You're going to need to send this to other people, not for our sake, but so that you can facilitate conversation and say, hey, watch this, connect with this, and then let's meet and talk about it. Some of you will be watching this in a group environment. Great, we love that. Then the point then is to talk about these things together, not just to passively consume it and then wait for next week, but to get into this thing, kind of push it and again, pull it around and see what you think. How does it help us? Again, find and follow Jesus. So Matthew 28, verses 16 to 20 say this. Now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. And when they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. And Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. I'm confident because I know that I have spoken to us often from these verses, that you have heard many people share many thoughts and ideas from these passages, from these verses, from Jesus's words. They are to his disciples in the immediacy of this moment, and they are to those who follow him today in the moment that we are occupying. So that call is for us. That call is for us to do something with. And so we have to look at those 4 elements. We have to look at go, make, baptize, and teach. Again, I know that you have heard me say this before, but the weight, the imperative, the landing is on the make. So what Jesus is saying with emphasis is make disciples. That's what he is underlining. That's what he is putting in bold. The go, the baptizing, and the teaching are important, absolutely. But the sentence structure, the imperative is on make. What does that mean for us? That means that if we kind of rank these things in order of our priority in our application, then making disciples is what we are going to put first. That's where our attention is. Remember, we have a vision and a mission statement that starts with make disciples. That's what we are looking to do in everything that we do. That's our primary filter, our lens, our approach, the way that we view the world. And so if you are not viewing the world through that lens, or this isn't making sense to you, I want to encourage you to reach out and connect with somebody and say, hey, how can I do this? How can you help me do this? How can we look to do this more effectively together? This is important because Jesus has said so, and we believe that Jesus is God. We believe that Jesus is alive, and so if he has said it, we want to take that seriously and apply it to our existence. We're not looking for patterns of external behavior or observances just to get us by or get us through another week, but we are looking to the application of a living relationship with the creator, the sustainer, and the inheritor of life, the one who before there was anything, there was God. That same God calls you into this pattern, into this experience, into this adventure of finding him and teaching others, baptizing others, connecting with others as you, guess what, make disciples. And so we really practically this week need to look at these things. And so my question to us is, where is Jesus asking you to go? Who is Jesus asking you to disciple, or how are you making disciples? Who are you baptizing? You are released and qualified, competent and able to baptize people in water and to pray with them for the Spirit of God to baptize them, to fill them, to renew them, to make them whole, to bring them into the fullness of a life with God. We want to celebrate that together. Of course we do, absolutely. That's not something that we want to do privately. Baptism is a public declaration of a decision to follow Jesus. So we want to celebrate together, but that's not limited to certain days. That's not limited to certain spaces. That you are released to encourage people as they find and follow Jesus to make that public declaration, and for them to go through the waters, symbolically traveling through death and rising, being resurrected into new life. You are invited to participate in that. If you haven't been baptized and you are watching this communication and you want to make that public declaration, that public statement, get in touch with us. We would love to celebrate that decision with you. And then teach. Who is Jesus asking you to teach? Some of you, I'm confident, have found and been following Jesus for a really, really long time, and there are things of his kingdom in you that you are able to connect with people in ways that are unique to you and are special to you, and it's a great thing for you to be able to connect that to people who are starting this adventure or at a different space or in a different time in it. I want to encourage you to go and do that, and I want you to feel that you are released to be proactive in that. You don't need to wait for an email. You don't need to wait for somebody to commission you from one of our gathered spaces. You don't need to wait for somebody to give you permission to do that. Jesus has given you permission to do those 4 things: to go, to make disciples, to baptize, and to teach. And so we want to help each other do that. Of course we do. We want to do that in health. Absolutely. Of course we do. We want to do that within the framework of what we believe as a community. So of course we want to help each other to do that, but you are equipped to do that. You have things that Jesus is teaching you and telling you that you need to be telling other people. So this week, let's get into those 4 things, and let's be honest about those 4 things. Don't just shrug your shoulders and shake it off and go, well, I'll wait for the next one. The obedience that we have in following Jesus is not just connecting with these patterns of somebody like me talking at you with a Bible for an amount of time and then you just ignore it and go back to your business. Jesus is calling you into an active role and participation with finding and following him in these things, in our shared life, in the way that we go, make disciples, baptize, and teach people. So that's that call. Remember, we are not we're not at a stage of life, we're not in a phase of existence where we are just scooping up information. There is no secret knowledge to be found in the acquisition of more and more and more information. We are called in the days that we live in to application. What will we do with the things that we have been given? We will need to change the way that we live. The world is changing. We can see that, we can feel that, we experience that every single day. And so we are not of those who shrink back and are destroyed. We are not afraid. We do not lack an ability to make a path through this, to find and to follow Jesus in it. But instead, we apply the things that we know in our discipleship, in our following, in our commitment, in our apprenticeship to Jesus. We have each other to help us do that. We're looking to help each other to figure these things out. So this week, go make some disciples, baptize some people, teach some people. It feels outrageous. I'm confident of that. It feels very unlike some of the patterns and experiences that you have been invited into, of passive observance or just quietly making your way in and then letting things slide for another week. And we celebrate our heritage and our history, and we thank Jesus for it. But I believe deeply that the days that we live in and what he is asking us to do is make this transition from acquiring information and into application. Be brilliant. If that makes no sense to you whatsoever, if you are not sure what on earth I'm talking about, then reach out, get in touch. We want to have these conversations. I know I say this often, but that's a genuine thing that we want to do. We want to connect with each other as we figure this out, as we work out how we make disciples. Have a brilliant week, and we will see you for the next part of this next week.